Okay, cool. Faith, Amanda, again, thank you so much for being here. Here's how we'll run this. I'll do a quick background on Climate Fellows and what we're doing. And then Faith, Amanda, if you guys can kind of introduce yourselves and talk about BFI, talk about Regenerosity, and a lot of the volunteer opportunities that you guys have listed out, that would be really fantastic. Alex, and I saw one more fellow in the call. And, oh, never mind. Oh, and Julia, there you go. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask in the call, please go ahead. I think, whatever we can ask right away, we'll do this. And Faith, I don't know if you heard my little update before. I'm going to record this, send it out to the community so that if we have any extra questions after, I'll send them right back to you and we can share that information openly. The information that you guys have sent me in regards to everything available at Regenerosity, that's been sent out, and we'll continue to work with the community to see if we can find you guys the right fit. So a quick background. You guys know, what we've been doing with Climate Fellows. We have been running a few of these meet and greets where fellows can meet directly with organizations and really understand their background, their mission, opportunities that they have within the organization that we can have fellows kind of jump in and help them with their goals. So again, anyone on this call, please use this as an opportunity to ask questions, understand the purpose and goals, brainstorm if you have any suggestions, and then express interest if you have it right now. And we will work with you guys, to figure out any details, if there's anything that needs to be sorted out. At the end of the call, we'll have an open discussion time and some Q&A, so we can work all that out later. But right now, Amanda, Faith, it'd be great to hear about BFI and what you guys are up to right now.
Sure. Thanks so much. Yeah, let's see where to start. BFI is based on Buckminster Fuller's legacy. Buckminster Fuller was a whole systems thinker, really 100 years ahead of his time, writing about whole systems and this blend of ecology and technology, which is so needed right now, and obviously the sweet spot of work on climate. And right now we're really focused on Regenerosity, this program focused on regenerative agriculture and scaling that with smallholder farmers around the world. A little bit of my background: before I was at BFI, I co-founded and was executive director of Project Drawdown. And the inspiration behind that was really to bring Drawdown strategies for climate solutions that involve sequestration to light. Before Project Drawdown, climate and energy was really like one word. Everyone who worked on climate worked on energy, and now it's much more expanded than that. And then so moved over to BFI 5 years ago, and now we're really focused on scaling those solutions that we outlined in Drawdown to be 12 of the top 20 solutions to climate change are all land and food oriented. And building off of the legacy of what Buckminster Fuller Institute had been doing before. Do you want to talk about the challenge, Faith?
Yeah, so I'm Faith Flanagan. I've been with BFI for nearly 4 years in November. I come from a multidisciplinary background. I worked in advertising right before I came on with BFI. And before that, I was working for nonprofits. And yeah, I was actually really brought in because I was sold on the work that we were doing on whole systems thinking with the Fuller Challenge. And the last 10 years that we elevated the work of projects on a global basis. We basically gave $100,000 to whole systems thinkers on a global scale. And that was vetted through a set of criteria. There was a jury system that we set up, and we had, 20-something jury members that were vetting the prizes. We had over 500 projects apply for the prize. And so, moving from there, we created a catalytic program so that we could elevate the work for the people that weren't getting the $100,000. And so we currently have a large ecosystem, what we call ecosystem, of over 700 prizes now that we work with. And we'll get into that a little bit. I don't know if we want to hop in, Amanda, or yeah. Do you want me to share the 9-pager?
Sure.
Okay, hold on one second. I can't remember, Nivi, if we sent through the deck that we were working with before or not.
Let me see if I can find the deck. I have the pitch deck. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, but that was a longer one. So we'll actually go through we have a 9-page deck. Sorry.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so while Faith is loading that, I think everyone probably understands the need to scale regenerative agriculture, but the trim tab that we found, which is a Bucky term for like the least amount of effort for the maximum effect, the best trim tab that we found for scaling regen ag is really focusing on hubs around the world. So there's 500 million smallholder farmers around the world. They produce over 75% of the food in the world, some say even over 80%, and manage so much of the land. And it's so critical for the carbon cycle to be balanced, and also for the cooling effect of land that is healthy in terms of our temperatures rising, to have regenerative agriculture practices in place. And so instead of trying to reach 500 million farmers, we're working at the hub level. So these different hubs work doing training of trainer programs or nursery programs or others in order to disseminate the knowledge and enable people to work in what some people call permaculture principles, but ways that really ways that focus on sequestering carbon, and then in doing so have incredible co-benefits to the point that we call them cascading benefits, because there's these co-benefits that just kind of create these virtuous cycles where intervening in how people are growing their food is actually one of the best ways to alleviate poverty. Like I said before, it cools local areas, it enables people to have better yields, higher nutrition, better education for their kids, and on and on and on. So that's why we're really excited about it. And it's this whole web here of a healthy water cycle and healthy community and biodiversity. It's not just climate, but it's one of the ways to really heal all of the various crises that are happening, while also making a big dent on sequestering carbon around the world and balancing and bringing the trillion excess tons of CO2 that we have in the atmosphere back into life. There's a great article by Will McDonough that talks about the different forms of carbon. It talks about fugitive carbon being in the atmosphere and living carbon, and the need to kind of balance those two. So that's what we're doing with this program. Go to the next cycle, and the next slide. Yeah, and it's really central to everything that we do at BFI, to do everything from a whole systems point of view. So always looking to nature for design inspiration, and always trying to solve as many problems at once with any intervention. So as I said earlier, land and food solutions are 12 of the top 20 solutions we found in Drawdown, and they create resilient communities, ecological balance, while addressing climate change in these different ways. So an example of one of the projects we're working on, this is Winnie from Uganda, from Yise, Uganda, who I just found out yesterday just had a baby. And she's part of this incredible program that teaches people how to do permaculture. So Uganda is one of the few countries where if you're a refugee, you're actually given land. You're given an acre, and in the past, people have kind of just seen it as a way to cut down those trees, turn it to charcoal, turn it into income as fast as possible. And USAID is really coming in with seeds and training and know-how and biofertilizer and compost and all of these different ways to enable that acre to continue to be something that they can make money off of and eat from going forward. So that's an example of the kind of project that we are helping resource and learn from and connect to one another. So Regenerosity is a project, a collaboration. It's under the BFI organization, but it's really of BFI, Lush Cosmetics, and the UN Development Program's Equator Prize. And so over 15 years, we've been hosting these prizes. We've spent over $20 million in building these programs and investing in these projects. Over 6,000 projects have applied to these prizes. 750 of them have either been winners or finalists. And that's the number that we really want to focus on with work on climate. And then 430 of those have been funded by us, whether that's with an actual reward or some sort of follow-on funding that we've been able to give to them. But the 750 projects that were either winners or finalists is what we want to build this robust database around so that we can resource them better, connect them to one another, and connect them to philanthropists. Go to the next slide. And so right now, just to speak about the database a bit, which we'll get into in a moment, but all that information is kind of all over the place. And by bringing it all together, then we can help this kind of engine that we have here, which is our theory of change, which is we're all about movement building for regenerative agriculture at large, but doing that through place-based impact. So really making sure that we're creating on-the-ground change. And then the intermediary step is all about network collaboration. So building that ability for the peer-to-peer learning to happen. So it's already happening somewhat ad hoc between our different programs, where we're kind of seeing, oh, this person could train you on biofertilizer, this person could help you think through seed saving techniques. But we really want to build this peer-to-peer learning network off of the database. So that's maybe a future project we can work on with Work on Climate once the database and map are ready to go. But yeah, we kind of work at all three levels in order to make sure this whole thing runs, and learning and storytelling are really important to that. This is another project, Vandana Shiva's project, if you've heard of her. She's considered the Gandhi of grain, incredible political activist in India. She's working with farmers who, a lot of whom are part of what they call the suicide belt in India, which is this region where over 380,000 farmers have committed suicide because of dependency on GMO seeds and pesticide use and degraded land. So it's about climate, and it's also about livelihood and life for a lot of people. And the idea here is to train farmers and do a training model. So much of what needs to happen for regenerative agriculture is for people to just learn how to read their landscape and learn how to do everything from germinating seeds to how do you grow in a polyculture, or like multiple crop kind of way. And so these training of trainer models are really important and cause this kind of cascade of people learning. For the next slide. And this is just a bit about our ambition. We're aiming to catalyze $10 billion towards regeneration by the end of the decade. In terms of context, there's about $10 trillion worth of philanthropy that's going to happen globally in this decade. And we think, actually just kind of a small percentage in 10 billion can really catalyze all of this climate mitigation and adaptation, while also all the livelihood and other cascading benefits that ensue. And helping people see that living capital is just as important as financial capital. So yeah, this is more of a kind of funding oriented deck, but this is what we're trying to raise. If anyone does know people who might want to contribute, we're raising 1.8 million by the end of the year in order to really finish out this pilot program. And then from there, we'll be able to grow fast and furious around the world, especially with the help of the database that you all will help us with. That's it.
Thank you. Do you guys, I know when we were talking, we talked about what you need in order from climate fellows to really push this along, and the data collection that you're looking for. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that, so that we have an understanding of what the work entails and what kind of talent, or not talent, but what skills you're looking for in order to make the best fit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right now we have the Equator Prize and Lush Cosmetics and BFI. We all have different information that we've tracked from the different projects. Especially BFI was a 10-year program, so we were tracking different information in the beginning than now. So it's kind of matching up those three different databases into one coherent one that can be searched. So some of it is like ontological design, like what should we have as the different columns, what's important to track. Another element of it is is kind of going through and making sure it all makes sense and then doing some research. So if you're interested in learning more about regenerative agriculture and these projects, I think it would be really interesting for someone who wants to learn more. And it's kind of a research and like data cleanup task. And then
I can speak to the next part because it's actually shifted a little bit since what we sent you. We're actually using a new platform called explorer.land, and that will be a mapping functionality where we can show all of the projects across an entire map and scale those projects. So, you know, partners and funders and partners and funders can see where the projects are, the quantitative and qualitative results that they've had over the last couple of years. They can see a multitude of information, and you can see where our pilot projects are versus where the whole ecosystem of projects are. So if a funder comes in and wants to just fund a project directly, it creates a big catalyst opportunity for the projects to actually build their programs and grow their communities. So we are just signing with explorer.land. So we just received a proposal today. It's a really cool technology, and whoever's interested in learning more, I can definitely share more as soon as I meet with them next week. We're going to make that decision early next week on moving forward with them. But so the database of projects will go into this mapping functionality and will be used to actually build the field and really understand what projects we're working with. And yeah, it's very cool. It's a very cool technology.
Thank you. Okay, so we have those two opportunities. That's really, and I will, Faith, if you can send me an updated snippet, I can make sure that gets out to our community so that we keep everybody up to date too. I want to open it up for any sort of discussion, Q&A. Faith, Amanda, you've given us a lot of information about the background on BFI's work and with Regenerosity and what you're looking for here. Julia, Alex, do you guys have any questions you want to chat to Faith and Amanda about?
Yeah, I would just ask, what kind of time commitment and like duration are you thinking of for volunteering?
Faith has a little bit of a better idea of like what the current state of those spreadsheets are in. Do you?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm moving. We actually are. Is from 2 to 5 hours a week, depending. And I think, you know, doing the initial database compiling, that just depends on if there's, you know, artificial intelligence or, you know, some kind of code that you can use to compile that data and how fast that is for you. It's hard for me to see what that looks like because I don't know how to work on the back end in that way. So that's why we're looking to you for your expertise. But I think, yeah, generally it's about 2 to 5 hours. I would say more on the 2 side. And it's a discrete project, I would say initially, unless you would like to see it ongoing, and then we could, you know, whoever we're working with, we'll see what happens from there.
I have a question, if I could. I'm curious if you can say a little more about. I saw soil carbon on some of those slides, and I'm wondering if you can say a little more about what you're doing in that area, and if there would be any opportunity for projects around soil carbon.
Yeah, that's our focus right now in terms of where we're, what projects that we're supporting are all focused on regenerative agriculture hubs. And so each of them have their own way of calculating it. One of the projects we're working on in Ecuador right now is working on, we're supporting them to create a methodology for a carbon credit through Regen Network, which is an ecological blockchain. They have a ledger that's intending to make it easy for people to be paid for ecosystem services. And yeah, there's quite a few different projects that are working on soil carbon, not all of them, but that's the dominant theme that we're focused on right now. And the majority of the projects have some sort of land or regenerative ag element to them.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Welcome, Jonathan.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, Cass, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Yeah, so based off of what you described, is the project complete once we take the two spreadsheets, unify it into one big spreadsheet, 3 spreadsheets? Okay, mine's from Jonathan. Like if we unify that into one spreadsheet, and is the project complete at that point, or is that all you're hoping for?
I mean, I think that that's one project that we're looking at right now, and we're a new program within an organization. So right now we were thinking, and this is what we've talked to team members about, is just having an initial discrete project to start with, and then there's a lot of opportunities to support in other ways, and also building the database and the mapping functionality. Since this is kind of a newer map, there's a lot of opportunity for understanding new systems and working with the LiDAR data, and really understanding what the projects are doing. So we also have other projects that we could work with in terms of communication and building our communication tools. A large part of what we do is based on storytelling and storytelling from the field. So that's another element of how do we incorporate the stories in a way that's really elevated, and we can get it out in the best possible way. So there's other opportunities. This is just one discrete project that we're looking at.
Oh, not a complaint. I was yeah, it's awesome that it starts concrete. I'd personally be happy to reconcile the 3 databases. Yeah, so so consider that one done. So I guess if you have any other dreamier projects that you want to talk about, like, or also I'm not just claiming that if anyone else wants to do that too, they're welcome. But yeah, I'm just like, let's dream bigger. Like, what else is there?
There's so much opportunity. We're really new, and we're growing our organization in a way that's really we're trying to have a larger footprint in terms of who we're reaching right now. We just got off a call with somebody that we were talking about how do we build our stories in a way that everybody can see what's going on in the field, and how do we share beyond the metrics of what are happening, the actual work on the ground, and how do we create a cohesive story. And I know that may not be done through engineering, but there's an engineering piece to that actually helps to build access. And so I feel like there's a lot to talk through. There's so many different things we're working on right now. I can write a large list if you're interested in us sharing more about the work that we're doing. So we've held this webinar series for the last year and a half. We have over 700 people that have attended the webinar series. So we can also share how do we expand the webinars, and how do we actually get our message out there more. How do we build our website in a way that actually speaks to the partners that we're working with? Yeah, there's so many different opportunities here. Amanda, do you want to share some brainstorming ideas?
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry, before we move on from the initial project,
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious. So like, you've got 3 spreadsheets, you want to reconcile them. You're talking about, you keep using the word database. Is the final form you want it to be a spreadsheet or an actual database? And then is there, like, if the way it's going to be rendered is through this this mapping tool, are there API docs for kind of what form you need the data to be in so that it can be appropriately consumed by that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the
product
database
manager in me.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of the words you just said are sinking in a little bit. But yeah, so we do have APIs for, I mean, we don't, but explorer.land has APIs for the way they want to see data, and that'll come through really clear in terms of how we should collect the data. Right now, there are 750 organizations on our list. I wouldn't say it's a database right now, it's a spreadsheet. We don't know if all of these projects are active. We don't know what state they're in. We don't know, if they're continuing, or, there's a number of pieces of information that we have to get initially to even put them into a larger platform. So
okay, so you need basically to normalize data from 3 different spreadsheets, and then you need an interface by which somebody can go and gather additional information on each, to basically flesh out each row in the database, and then you need to have that subset that's still active be assimilated into a form that the explorer.land app can parse. Does that sound accurate?
yes, and I hope we're tracking that so I can actually completely track that. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. The second piece in terms of people activate or getting the information up to date, we were hoping that work on climate fellows, or whatever you call yourselves, fellows, members, rock stars, would be able to do that, or interested in doing that research work. So it wouldn't be like the BFI team that's inputting it. It's not just a form that we need. We want the support in actually doing the research.
Yeah. And then in terms of the question you had about the database, I mean, I think right now it's up to what is the, capabilities of the person that's working on that project. Is if it can be built into a database, that makes a lot more sense. Doesn't make sense to build a database and then put it onto a platform. I think these are all questions that we need to work out with the person that wants to take on that project.
Mm-hmm. And then there'll be other programs that will want the data to be able to speak to. There's many different, luckily, dozens and dozens of climate action platforms all emerging. I would love to be able to kind of offer this and say, who else wants to feature this? So I think the cleaner and more accessible that, whether we call it a database or not, but that content is, then the more we can be featured around the web.
Yeah, I think the tech solution, based off what you described, is that the best for this is probably an Airtable. Yeah, Jonathan likes that. Yeah. Okay, all right. Because then non-technical people can still add to the database. It has an API. So I think you should negotiate with next week you should, before you sign anything, before you agree with explorer.earth, you should agree, get them to agree that if the data is an Airtable, they'll support your use case. And I think they should probably be happy to do that, because Airtable has a standard API that should be easy to plug into their stuff. That shouldn't be work that you guys have to do. It should be part of the agreement.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's what we've been working in to date, and it's been really helpful. Yeah. I'm curious, Jonathan, when you say, is it a database, what's your definition of a database in terms of what that entails?
I think Airtable, a spreadsheet is a spreadsheet. It's a Microsoft Excel file or a Google Docs, Google Drive spreadsheet. Database, Airtable, I think, is a database with a nice UI on top of it, or obviously it could be in a SQL database or various no SQL databases. So, but yeah, something that lives in a cloud and is accessible via code would be my definition of a database, versus something that is emailed around to people. That's a spreadsheet in my book.
And I would also queryable, you could search it for different things.
Right. And I would also add to Cass's recommendation for Airtable in that there's a bunch of pretty neat no-code tools that can be layered on top of it that I've been learning about for other projects. And yes, there's an API, so if people want to build apps, that's great. But also, if you don't have people who can build apps and you want to build like a mini app that would enable a bunch of volunteers to do the research, for example, and kind of have a distributed workforce to do the research on all those records, that you could use something like Stacker or Softer. They all end in R for some reason, and just put a really user-friendly layer on top of the Airtable that has proper user access controls, so people can't fat finger data they're not supposed to be looking at and things like that. So that seems, I think Airtable is a great choice.
And I just put a link in the chat here of another partner that wants to feature our projects, just to give you an idea of another way that this will be used. So that's One Earth. They have an incredible map that's in all of the different ecoregions and bioregions of the world. So yeah, just to show you, like, this is so important so that we can really push it out into all of these different platforms where people are already looking. Yeah. And get all
So it seems like geodata is definitely going to be an important component of the database.
Yes, yeah. There's quite a few maps. One Earth also has this global safety net map, if you haven't seen that, which is really neat. Just all of the protected land in the world. And we had a conversation with them yesterday about just how vital it is to do regenerative agriculture on the boundaries of protected land, because it protects, like, the people who are living right next door. If they have a livelihood, they're less likely to go in for poaching or deforestation. So yeah, it's really exciting work. Very, very impactful. This global safety net found that if we just protect the right 4% of the world, we can create corridors between most protected areas and create kind of this, it just has incredible knock-on effects. There's like the half Earth and the 30 by 30 and all these commitments of what we need to conserve. But actually, if you get down to like the mapping level, you can really find some interesting insights.
Oh, sorry, I derailed you from moving on to the broader ideation. So I appreciate the indulgence.
No, it's good to narrow or to go down into it. So Cass, you're interested in kind of reconciling the three. Who else is interested in kind of doing some of the research and making sure projects are active and tagged appropriately, et cetera?
I can help with that.
So I think it'll be really rewarding and inspiring and very different than the news cycle. Like all of these incredible people that are making things happen in the world.
And I'd be happy if we want to do something like to help spread the load on that. I'd be happy to kind of help design a tool to make that easier, because I feel like I'm imagining it's going to be relatively time and labor intensive to reach out to each org, and so it's not necessarily something you just kind of churn through,
right?
600 on your own. So if we can share the load, it might help.
Mm-hmm. So creating a tool, and then we can put that tool out to more people who might want to. Yeah, that's what you said earlier. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'd love that.
I'm also happy to hop in and help with that, Jonathan.
Excellent.
Well, and I also think, Camille, given your background, you would have some really awesome ideas on just like how to showcase the projects more generally once the data is available.
I'd be super excited to help out with that. Yeah, that sounds great.
That's awesome.
What kind of ideas come to mind, Camille? I don't know your background or.
So just to give a little bit of context, I've spent the last year and a half working for a company called Petrama. And so they're in the carbon offset market space. And the majority of my work there was around setting up their marketplace, and then also helping think about storytelling, how to relate to these projects, and how to display them on the web. I can share out the Explorer that I built for them.
Yeah, that would be great. I think, Camille, it sounds like there's kind of cross functionality here with the storytelling piece as well. So
absolutely
exciting.
Yeah, back to kind of like our theory of change. We think the learning and storytelling is really like the engine that makes this whole thing run. And yeah, Buckminster Fuller often talked about we would build all the right tools for the wrong reasons first. So just thinking about like clickbait and all the ways that the internet is teaching us learned hopelessness right now, like how can we use those same tools to really inspire people to see that the change is happening all over the world. It's just under-resourced and under-known about. Yeah, so we'd love to, in terms of Cass, your question of like thinking big, what would we have explorer.land and One Earth, but what could be like another native or another partner to bring on to say like, what does a regenerosity version of this storytelling look like? Because explorer.land, Faith, that will be mostly land focused projects, right? And some of these projects are not all land, some are building or energy.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be. I mean, I think right now there's a forest focus on the proposal that we're working on because we're working on regenerative agriculture, but I think they're starting to build out multifunctionality in other ways. So I think I'll have to have that conversation with them, but
yeah. But yeah, in terms of dreaming big, like what could a regenerosity based, our own map or our own storytelling platform, what would that look like? In addition, and maybe it would point out to One Earth and Explorer and the other places where it's featured, but if we're just making it for ourselves.
Yeah, and Cassandra asked a really good question, if there's a community for all of our projects right now. So we're starting to invite our projects to Hylo, and there's a WhatsApp community currently that Realliance uses. The problem with Slack is not everybody in these communities has access to good internet or even has access to a computer in some cases. So, everybody has a smartphone, but Slack is another tool that people have to learn. And so it's how do we make communication easeful for these projects and the communities that we're working with. So right now we're using WhatsApp and trying to transition some of the projects to Hylo, just because Hylo is a really trust-based platform. But that's another question, actually. If any of you have experience, we're always open to learning what's out there and what's possible. So it's not, we're building with our teams and not just, internally trying to build. So yeah, we would see whoever comes on the project as partners. Collaborators.
Yeah.
Along those lines, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just what I said earlier about like the peer-to-peer learning network. That's one, there's one thing of like getting philanthropists to know about these projects and resourcing, but we also really think upholding all of these project leaders as wealth holders of different forms of capital, of intellectual capital and experiential capital and natural capital. What are ways that we can create that peer-to-peer learning network? So that could be another thing to dream big into.
Yeah, I was going to say like that community seems like just one part of that, the internal kind of using this database to foster internal education and evangelism. And I'm wondering if like there's like first round capital. I have a guest. First round capital is kind of notable for pioneering in the venture world, community learning within their portfolio companies, and they went beyond just like, okay, connecting peer-to-peer learning, but also doing programming and bringing in outside experts and things like that. So I'm just wondering if you've had any thoughts about content and other kind of more proactive things to foster that community, the proactively cross-pollinate beyond just connecting, enabling them to connect.
Yeah, so we're providing, you mean in terms of trainings and how we're actually facilitating the peer learning network right now? Yeah, so right now we're working predominantly with our projects in East Africa because we're still in that pilot stage with those projects. But we meet on a monthly basis with these projects, and there's a video storytelling element. So each of the projects has a 5-minute video that they walk into the meeting with to talk about where they're at in their projects. And so that really tells the story of how do they, what they're doing and how they're doing. And then there's a baseline study that each of the projects fills out based on elements of their project, but it's kind of across the board. What is the baseline study telling us is how the projects are working so far and what's being captured. So is this, is the soil transitioning already? There's a lot of questions we ask within that baseline study. And then there's also this training component and training element, which is cross-training from projects that are within that cohort. And then there's bringing in other trainers outside of the cohort to help build their capacity and build just help build the work that they're doing. So there's a couple different elements there, and would be very open to hear if you've experienced some kind of peer learning networks, what works well for you. Yeah.
Those all sound awesome. So, and also sounds like the baseline studies is another database.
Totally, it is another database, and we have multiple databases, and unfortunately they're kind of, we're trying to like streamline a little bit, but we have so many Airtables right now.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure like we're good on time. The discussion's been really insightful because it sounds like not only did we have those like 2 ideas coming in to how fellows can help with Regenerosity, but now we have a lot more insight into where you guys are going long term, all the other stuff that you have going on, which makes sense because BFI is a huge organization. And it seems like we have a couple of good fits to help you guys get started off and launch. So Julia and Camille, we can get you guys directly in touch with Faith and Amanda and start the process of kicking it off. Jonathan, Cass, you guys are on the core team. You know how this works. So like this is less crazy in terms of getting you guys set up. But I think following this meeting, what I can do is do introductions and we can figure out the specifics of what needs to go on. And Julia, you had a great question before about, what's the time commitment you're looking for, making sure that we have all those details figured out and communicate across the line so everyone's on the same page. Before we close out or anything, is there any last minute comments, last minute questions for Faith and Amanda, or do you guys have any questions for us in regards to how this process was for you guys? Is there anything else that we can help you with before we close out?
I'm curious just what works best for you all in terms of working dynamic. Do you want to check in once a week? How many hours a week do you think you can commit? How can we make it easable for you and just like really clear on how to partner together? Maybe you each have different answers.
Yeah. Julia, Camille, do you want to take that one?
I guess for me, I know you said 2 to 5 hours a week earlier. I can totally do that, even 5 or more than that. I think a weekly check-in is good, and maybe just if we agree upon some channel, if there's any questions along the way, what's your preferred method of communication between those?
Yeah, we use Slack. Yeah. Cool.
Perfect. So for myself, I am taking a little bit of a break. So I'll be back in action starting in September. So I'd be happy to join in on that weekly meeting starting in September, and then can kind of go from there. In terms of time commitment, I'm happy to do the 2 to 5 and even offer a little bit more depending on what other projects are ready for liftoff.
Great. And for me, like I was telling Amanda before the call, I'm trying to start a 501c3 in land restoration, but my professional background as a software engineer. So anyways, but basically I'd love to just help you mash together the databases into an Airtable really quickly. I'd love to look over the projects that you have and see what exists in the space. And then I view the Airtable as an artifact that I want to deliver quickly to you guys, and then see if there's any room for collaboration after that. But but yeah, weekly call sounds great. So everyone's on the same page, and Slack sounds great for async. So that all works great.
Maybe if y'all could create in the BFI Slack a room and just invite us as single channel guests, then we can have a space to set up time for, take the conversation forward.
Fabulous.
Yeah, definitely. That's like a great idea. And then I just wanted to say thank you all for taking your time out of your busy weeks to do work like this. It's really important and needed in the world. So we're excited to be working with you all. And yeah, just know that, yeah, respect the work that you're doing, and we're just grateful.
Yeah, and it's so catalytic. I mean, the idea of trim tab is like through and through, like BFI. How do you be the most effective with the least amount of effort? So yeah, we're always open for feedback in that way too. If you see something that you're like, that could be tweaked, we have a culture of constructive criticism is always welcome. So just let us know.
And curious if you're looking for more learning on what regenerative agriculture is from different frameworks. We're also running a course, and so would love to have you be part of the course as well, even just listening in to understand. So there's always learning opportunities and room for, really expanding our thinking.
I guess one ask for the BFI team is it would be great if you guys could join the workonclimate.org Slack and cross-post your resources. So we have learning group Regen Ag, and they would love to learn about your course. And it would be just great if you could join the Slack and like be involved, and like whenever you're running something cool, just like cross-post it to us. And
I would love that. Yeah, that sounds great. Do you invite us, or how does that work?
I'll send you an invite. Yeah.
Okay.
If we can have the link to the course, Faith, that you just mentioned, that sounds super interesting. And I feel like it'd be super valuable to the community as well. That'd be great to send out. You can include it once like the BFI Slack is up, that you post it in there, or I can send it out via email, whatever is easier. But
we're still working on the landing page.
Oh, perfect.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll send out by next week.
Great. So when you guys are
done on
ready,
Tuesday, and we love your support in reaching out to folks. We're really trying to get a super planetary crew. So if you know people in other countries, part of it's a hands-on course. So you learn about the frameworks and learn about practices, but then you also work with a project on the ground. And what's awesome is so many of our teams in the past have represented like 3 or more continents in one team, and just that alone, like being part of a planetary crew like that, has been a highlight for a lot of people. And then to be able to translate the learning into action right away. So yeah, excited to share that with you next Tuesday.
I think we're super excited to see it. And I think a lot of other people would be really psyched to be a part of it too. Okay. Thank you guys so much, Amanda and Faith, especially for coming, for talking to us about BFI. Sorry, all the projects that you have going on. Everyone in the call, Alex, Julia, Camille, Cass, Jonathan, thank you for joining. Like I said, I'll make this available to everybody in the community. We'll send out more details, the updated details, Faith, that you talked about, so that we can generate some interest. And it seems like we'll start that BFI channel on the Work on Climate Slack, so we can communicate with you guys directly. But this was super informative. This is a great discussion. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another idea that just popped into my mind is all of these projects could be Work on Climate partners.
That's true.
Like each one of them. I was just thinking, Alexander was like, I wonder if there's like a specific soil carbon project that Alexander could be paired with. And I was like, wait, all of these could potentially be. So let's keep that in mind as our big dream that we can dream into too. And Alexander, if there's anything in particular you want to work on, we can help match you with a project.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have a project called Yakum that you might be really interested in. So if you're interested, we can just share more about them as well, the work that they're doing on soil.
I would love, that would be terrific. I'll find you on Slack. I'm just starting a new job, and so I want to get the kind of schedule down there, and then once I've got that, I want to be more involved with them.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.